apology from Wendy?
Yes.
Right, I'll open the meeting. We have an apology from Wendy. Somebody move and second that we receive that apology, please. Thomas, seconder. Ray, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Public forum. There isn't any public forum.
Okay, let's go.
Right, conflicts of interest. Shirley? Right. Mark? All right, thank you. Yep. So any other conflicts of interest that have popped back in your head? All right, confirmation of the minutes of the Oxford-Ohoka Community Board from the 8th of October 2021. Somebody move that they be signed as a correct record, please. Thomas, second it. Nikki, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Matters arising. None. Deputations and presentations, there are none. No adjourned business. Recommendation for speed limit.
Joanne.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to present the report with an update on the speed limit proposed changes, and this is following the obviously previous approval by the board to go out and consult on speed limits earlier in 2021. So we have been through a public consultation process which went from the 27th of September through to the 18th of October, and the results of that are included within this report. Just of note, we did have 297 submitters providing information, the feedback on the proposal. They didn't submit on all of the full suite of proposed changes, but did comment on obviously areas of interest to them in particular. We've also been through the process of seeking feedback from other key stakeholders such as the police, Waka Kotahi, various other organisations, and have included within table 1 and 2 of the recommendation the proposed speed limits for the board to consider. One thing I will note is Main Street, Oxford, so the proposed 40 km/h speed reduction there is subject to council consideration of budget through the annual plan process so that we can implement the traffic calming which would be required to achieve that speed. Generally for Oxford and Ohoka, the proposed changes were well supported, and you can see that in this survey information. And also just a note, while it's not within the board's area, but it is obviously of interest for the board, the lower end of Tram Road at 80 km/h was also well supported. So I'm happy to take any specific questions that anyone might have.
Just like clarification first, where it says the assessed safe and appropriate speed, and the mega maps is the NZTA's tool for assessing, how's the manual one worked out?
So mega maps is just one tool that we compare the actual speed that's calculated with. With the manual process, there's quite a number of criteria that are set out quite clearly in the setting of speed limit rules that we need to assess each road on, and that's a process that Ali has gone through with looking at, takes into consideration a whole load of things: the number of vehicle crossings, proximity of any hazards, the number of intersections, the personal and collective risk. So that's all put into a calculation, which is then comes up with the manually calculated speed.
So with the mega maps, does that those amounts here come from NZTA, or does it come from council?
No, Mega Maps is an NZTA tool, and it is just that. It is a tool that we use as a sensibility check. Yes, yeah, we do, yeah.
Just wondering, I totally understand that the Oxford Main Street has to come with traffic calming measures, but I was in there that speed bumps or raised pedestrian crossings would be a thing. Do you think that just because of the type of traffic that does travel down there, that probably wouldn't be the best solution, just in terms of noise at night time? And
what I would say with that is raised platforms could be a thing. They don't necessarily have to be the what is implemented. And what we would want to go through is with the community board a process of looking at what the different options are, and then looking at implementing that. So what I've got at the moment is Ali looking at what the various options are for trying to get the speed reduction that we need through that full length, and then we would come back to the board on what that might look like. So with your agreement.
Thank you. Just a question around the promotion of the consultation. How were the A5 flyers distributed? Because I didn't receive one. My parents who live on Ashley Woods Road didn't receive one, and I've spoken to at least 5 other people who didn't receive them in Oxford. So it just concerns me that a number of these people didn't even know what was going on. And I think it's sort of reflected in the not even 2% of people in our area responded to the consultation, and I sort of struggle to look at that and actually make a decision on the consultation when such a small sample size.
Yep, I can provide feedback on that. The flyers were delivered in areas, and I'd have to double check Oxford and where they were and weren't delivered. I don't have that information in front of me. But they were delivered in some key affected areas. Now those areas were agreed with our comms engagement team. So they were, I believe some of them were done through the Rural Mail, and then I'm not sure how the rest were delivered, so I will have to follow that up. We also did advertising in the newspaper. We put information on our website. We pushed it out through Facebook. We had flyers and information at all of the service centres just to try and get it in front of as many people as possible. I know it's quite a big area that we've covered this time, but I guess to provide a little bit of context around the level of feedback we normally get, when we did the main North Road and bottom of Tram Road, I'm not sure if you remember, we did the 60 down there. We had 47 submissions, so numbers are not generally really high, and I think given we've also been in COVID times, so we haven't been able to do the drop-in sessions as we would have liked to have. We still feel like we have got some reasonable reach.
Sorry. I'm just going to talk about Commercial Road. NZTA have recommended that all the Commercial Road be and the adjacent streets be 40 kilometres per hour, and you've gone with 60 because the reason is that'll be easier to get it across to the residents. No one from Commercial Road, I don't think, actually got a flyer, and you got no feedback from them. So why not do the whole of it to 40 kilometres an hour rather than wait for your speed management plan?
So sorry, I'm not sure how we know that we didn't get any feedback from Commercial Road.
I've been right through all of the feedbacks and wrote beside it whether it was Main Street, High Street, Weld Street, etc.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that no one from Commercial Road has commented though, because we don't.
But that no one's commented on Commercial Road.
Commercial Road itself.
Mm.
Yes, but it could be because they were comfortable. I honestly don't know without trying to delve into that information a little bit more. If we've consulted on 60, we can't just go and change it to 40 now because we want to. We've consulted on the proposed speed limit.
But even before you consulted, it was recommended by NZTA that it be 40.
And I'm pretty sure
When you go out for consultation in the annual plan, is there any way that area can be extended?
the reason we've gone from Burnett Street to Bay Road is because that is where all the activity, a large portion of the activity in terms of people moving between shops and the library service centre and the various different places are. So we start to have issues. You have minimum lengths of a speed restriction, and at 50 kilometres an hour, that's 500 metres, and we've had a look at where that would fall with the entrance into Oxford, and you end up not being able to push it far enough out. And I think we do need to remember where the activity is actually occurring, and the majority of it is where those businesses are, which is why our recommendation to the board is Burnett Street to Bay Road.
But you're not really answering my question. When you go out for the annual plan, can, in consultation, and people want it a bit out further, because it does, can it be altered?
So no, it has to go through this a consultation process for speed limits. So that's the process we have to follow when we set speed limits, is we have to go out and consult. And if we wanted to go and change that now, we would have to consult again. It's a little bit like the Commercial Road situation, where if we wanted to change that, we would have to go back out and consult on a different speed limit. So we've put a proposal in front of the community as part of this. The annual plan will cover the funding side of things, but not the speed limit. So we would have to decouple the two of those.
Thank you. I've got two questions. So we're talking about Main Street. When you say from Burnett Street to Bay Road, there are pedestrian crossings on both of those intersections, obviously. So are we talking about moving it 20 metres before those pedestrian crossings, or how would that work?
Yeah, we would certainly look to have them just all before the pedestrian crossings, to make sure we have kind of got that lower speed at or near the pedestrian crossings. And then it's a matter of what the pedestrian crossings look like, whether they're raised, whether they're not, whatever else we do to try and get that speed limit reduction as people come up to that point.
Yeah, because the reason I asked that question is because, as you're aware, there's heading west, there's a garden, jut out. That there have been issues in the past with the plants growing up and meeting the trees, so it's sort of like a wall. And if it was on the other side of that, you're not going to be able to see it. So we're sort of talking about having to move it like 30 or 40 metres. Is that going to be covered under this consultation, or would that have to be sent back out for more consultation because it's going to be further back? And like we're potentially talking about changing the nature of the road, so would that change it again, and would that affect this consultation being redundant, or?
There is a little bit of leeway in the position, the location of speed limit signs. That what is implemented needs to be within about 20 metres of what is proposed. So we do have, I guess, a little bit of leeway to be able to move those backwards or forwards. But if there was a significant change, then we would need to go through a process of updating that. So if you're talking moving it an extra 40 metres down the road, then yes, we would need to adjust that.
Okay, so second question is looking down this big table of all the speeds. Like the majority of them, the mean operating speeds are pretty close to the proposed speed limit, and they're pretty close to the mega mapped and the manually assessed ones. Apart from Ashley Gorge Road, where it's the mean operating speeds is 20 to 24 kilometres above the proposed speed limit. Just wondering how that works with the criteria that it has to be 5%, a maximum of 5% above the proposed speed limit. Yeah, it's page 92. That's right.
Good girl.
So I think with Ashley Gorge Road, one thing that's going to be really important is that we get some good threshold signs and markings and where that speed limit change will occur to, I guess, reinforce that speed. What we can also do is once it goes in is monitor it, and if we want to, we can look at things like a wide centre line which will help bring that speed down. I guess just the other comment is so yes, the mean operating speed is definitely sitting a bit higher there than ideally what we would want it to be. So it would definitely be about trying to reinforce that speed limit change to get the compliance.
Yeah, it's just because it's also an interesting one, because like they're talking about moving it to the north side of the S-bends. Like you're going to get pretty good compliance around the S-bends and through the Sales Road, Somerset Drive, down the hill, but then it opens back up and you've got like 500 metres of perfectly straight, wide country road with no houses either side. So I'm just worried about how appropriate it is for that stretch of the road, if you understand what I mean. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
Yeah, I do.
Not really an objection, but I'm just concerned that the mean operating speed is okay to be, the criteria to be broken in some instances and in other instances not. There doesn't seem to be a lot of consistency.
I think my observation with this is just because you don't live on that part of that road doesn't mean you don't have an investment in that road. And by just giving out pamphlets to people that live on that road, you're going to get a biased view of it, because of course someone that lives there will want something reduced, but people that commute down that road may not want it reduced. So I don't know, I feel like it can quite easily get skewed, the information that you get back, because of whoever is passionate about something, and whoever would, if they knew a bit more, then maybe they would be a bit more invested in it. And I think that Tram Road, for instance, is a huge investment in this board as well, not just the Kaipoi board. So I would like to know that we would have a bit more input in that road as well, because that's a road that is our arterial route into anywhere, or any of those other bits that connect communities to other places.
My understanding, and this has been discussion at previous community board meetings, is it's not something that I guess you can recommend on, because it is not within your ward area, but I understand you can note either support or not for a particular speed limit, and that could be noted as part of this, and then that information would go through to council as part of their consideration. And obviously Nikki can also voice that at that council meeting. That's helpful.
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, the recommendation on page 2 in the summary agenda, can I just make an amendment to that recommendation? Unfortunately, you will note that the right recommendation is in the report, but it wasn't copied in the summary agenda. It should say that the Oxford-Ohoka Community Board receives the report in A, and in B, that it recommends to council that the following speed changes listed in A and B below be approved, because the board does not have the authority to approve it. The board will only recommend to council.
Move that we receive the report and pass on the recommendation, please. Ray, seconder. Mark? All in favour? Against?
Okay.
And the reason why is the lack of consultation, because I know full well that people in Main Street didn't get the brochure, people in Commercial Road didn't get the brochure, people in Bay Road didn't get the brochure, and it was all within this area.
I'll follow up and provide some feedback on where it was delivered. That's helpful.
And I'm the same, surely, for the same reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I got mine 4 days before it closed.
Can we actually have some discussion as well?
Yeah, okay. Have some discussion. I was waiting for you to bring that up. Ray moved it, Mark seconded it. Thomas wants some discussion. So do you want you got anything to say to your motion? You got anything to say to the motion?
Just to Shirley's point, and I used to be the National Operations Manager for New Zealand Post Junk Mail International. So I know junk mail inside it. I would assume the council's choices of picking new mailbox or other mailboxes with no junk mail, so I think it's reached me in that they have a list of all the boxes, but once again, no junk mail sign. So some stuff from government and council can supersede going into every mailbox. Some stuff doesn't. So if you've got no junk mail sign, you may, depending how it's packed, person watch the job of rich media. If they just pack that way of doing it, then anyone's going to go.
Joanne, is it possible to have another consultation in Oxford?
That would delay the implementation of any speed limit changes if you wanted to go back out to consult again. And I guess I would just be looking for confirmation as to what you were wanting to consult upon, or whether you're wanting general consultation. There's obviously quite a process in doing that. And we have tried to push this out to a number of different forums, obviously through a number of different medias to reach people.
Thank you. I agree with Shirley's comments about the flyer drop, and just to add to them, I live on Park Ave, which runs off Main Street in the affected area, so I would have thought I would be an affected party, so we should have had one. And my parents live on Ashley Gorge Road, and they're obviously potentially having it changed 3 kilometres down the road from them, so I would have thought it would affect them as well. And also, just probably more of a general comment, people found it very hard to get a paper copy of the submission. That wasn't very available at the service centre, I didn't think. And Shirley mentioned something along the lines of it to me, that you had to actually ask for it. And if you didn't know about it, you're not going to ask for it, obviously. And I'm also concerned about the placement of the main road, Burnett Street to Bay Road, being too tight to the pedestrian crossings and the intersections of Bay Road and Burnett Street. I think that should have been extended slightly, or something along the lines of 40 metres from the intersection or something should have been included in the consultation, because I think you're just going to have issues with changing the speed limits so close to those intersections and the pedestrian crossings, which is where the issues are. And I think the main issues are those further the end pedestrian crossings as opposed to the actual centre part. So I think there's going to be issues around that if it is approved in the annual plan and the traffic calming measures I have to put in. I think down the road there's going to be issues, but that's.
And my reason is very, very similar. There was someone in Main Street who was just out of the area, and she said, "Isn't it good?" This is the day before. "Isn't it good? We're going to be 40 kilometres an hour." And I went, "No, you're not. You're out of the area, just out of the area, and anyhow it's going to cost nearly $500,000 to get it that way." It didn't really say in the actual submission booklet that there was there was a rider on it. So, and the advertisement in the papers was about this big, whereas a whole page in the Observer for planning, we didn't, there was nothing in our Observer. There's lots of elderly people in Oxford who don't have access to the council's Facebook page or online. And I know I've been doing this for 5 years because I got asked to. You know, my personal opinion is a bit different, but I'm here to, on behalf of the community, and they did want it extended a little further, and I hear that some of them don't want because of the noisy trucks at 2 o'clock in the morning bumping over the road as it is now, with raised pedestrians and things like that. So there's got to be some real consultation with the people as to what they want. These people that told me that they were going to get, they weren't in the area, so they didn't get really a chance, and I pointed it out on a map that's only that far, so it wasn't really, I don't think the consultation was very good at all.
Yeah, I know it is. There's a number of failures, including back outside the police station again, and yes, it is programmed for repair. I'll follow up and get some timing for you. We're very aware of the work that needs to be done.
I was sitting in the community trash rooms last Tuesday, and I thought the whole building was going to fall down. And it was enough outside.
Yeah. No, completely acknowledge and agree, and yes, that is very much on our radar.
Thank you.
Oxford-Ohoka's meeting schedule up until September 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This is the annual report that comes to the board, just to set out the dates or the proposed dates for next year. It is proposed that we meet at the Oxford Town Hall or the Ohoka Community Hall. You will note that in line with this year, I tried not to put us in the Ohoka Hall during the winter months. We will be meeting at the Mandeville Sports Centre in April, and we're hoping to meet in the West Ayrton Hall in the 2nd of February, because they have a standard booking from the Scouts on a Wednesday night, and we might just get in here because the schools might not have started at the 2nd of February. So, yeah, I will take it as read. If there's any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Just for the benefit of us not repeating the events of this evening, because Zumba was meant to be in here tonight, and I caught that there was an ad in the local Facebook page. I went, I don't think they got the message. I know you're going to be in touch with Anna, but maybe once we've agreed on these dates, I or somebody can get in touch with the Zumba lady to put in her diary as well, because I don't think there's a really great communication there with the bookings, because this has happened to us twice. So.
We do send a list to the board.
Yeah,
And
I
after
know.
the previous time that we did some work out, I sent the list again. And so we did some work out today.
I think the person that's doing our bookings for the hall is trying to hand it over to someone else, so I think there's just a couple gaps there at the moment, so, yeah.
I will be happy to.
Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, the Mandeville Sports Centre has been booked out for us for that evening. I have spoken to Richard, and I'm hoping that the West Ayrton lady will come back to me soon, and I will advise you accordingly. But we won't be sharing a venue, no.
Right. Application of the Oxford-Ohoka Community Board's discretionary grant fund. From the first one is from the Life Education Trust Canterbury towards the delivery of Healthy Herald program.
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chairperson, can I just make an amendment? They requested $477 and not $500. If we could just make that correction on the report, please.
Right.
No. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sir. It's the second one. Mandeville has 477. They have. I'm very sorry about the confusion.
I'll move that we give the life education program $500.
Seconder. Right. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right. And a grant to the Mandeville Sports Club for $477 towards the purchase of Life Members Board for the club. Shirley's moving, seconded by Nikki. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So that's 477. And approves a grant to the Ayrton Pony Club towards the cost of building horse yards. Presumably that's $500. Sorry?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, a concern has been raised that the horse yards may be considered buildings, and you will look in the board criteria that it says the board will not consider the purchase of buildings or property. So the criteria is a guideline. If the board wishes to grant them the $500, they're more than welcome, but that just should be taken into consideration.
These are horse yards, the club's building, which are not yards that you'll move around every weekend. They're 90 odd yards that'll be, posts will be probably concreted in and made up, and they'll be there for 10, 15, 20 years. So they're a permanent structure, you know, and the yards are costing $40,000 it is to build them, so they're almost like the cost of a shed. So I raised a query through as a grey line whether or not is it considered to be a building because it's a permanent structure. Yeah. If you've yeah, I just want a clarification for the board. It's the
No.
I just thought it'd be a good learning thing for the board. Go, when is a building, not a building?
That I can't.
I built cattle yards on my property several years ago, and there's no way that that's a building. So.
If you look at the criteria, it says we do not support the purchase of land and buildings. And I've always interpreted that we do not buy real estate. But then Mark raised the question, a fair question, is this not a permanent structure there for a building? But I don't know. I must be honest with you, I don't know.
In my experience, it's not covered by the Building Act as such.
I'm not against the grounding of it. I just thought it was worthy of a question, because we could end up getting more. Someone then comes and says, "Hey, I want to buy a total span shed that doesn't need a building consent." So Western Rodeo are putting in a shed that doesn't need a consent, but it's a 3-sided shed with a garage door in the front. Would we give them $500 for that building? You know, that's the sort of things we're getting. I think we're going to get more requests of. So, yeah.
This hasn't a roof, so it's not classified as a building.
To Ray's point, that it doesn't have a consent, and that building doesn't need a consent from council because it's small enough. So,
Is it because it's an asset, becomes an asset to the club? Is that what the point is? Is that you're providing them funds for an asset? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why a building's different to anything else.
If the club's got jumps out in the arena, they're an asset. But they're damn sure they're not a building.
It's not land improvement.
But it's council land, isn't it? They go on council land.
Yeah.
If you would like, we can table the application and maybe talk to the people in the building department and see if it is considered a building or not considered a building and what would be required.
been in touch some time ago with the Waimakariri Public Arts Trust and asked them what we did to get a mural on the toilets. They weren't quite sure and said just give a design and they would either approve it or not. I had contacted the Green Spaces and he advised me that there was no policy on murals for public toilets, but this has been going on for about 6 years and Keep Oxford Beautiful would really like to move it on, and the only way we can move it on is actually find out from the council what we as Oxford Promotions Group and Keep Oxford Beautiful need to do to get it over the line. So what I had actually written out was a recommendation that I can't do, but we would just like to be able to sit down with Green Spaces and say, these are the things you can and can't do to employ or engage, you know, local painters, volunteers and artists. So that's all I'm asking really for the board to come on board with that really.
That we keep A the same but change Shirley Farrell to Oxford Promotions because the letter's from Oxford Promotions and Shirley just did it on behalf of them. And then B, support the proposed theme for the mural of native flora and fauna on the front exterior of the Main Street toilets in accordance by the brief outlined by OPAC. C, advise Council's Green Space team of the board's support for the proposed theme of the mural of native flora and fauna. D, request the Council's Green Space team to liaise with OPAC and advise them of the conditions required by the Council to enable them to move forward to seek a design and costings for painters, artists and volunteers. And E, notes that a report with the final design and costings shall be submitted to the board for consideration.
Just to clarify, I was just a bit confused about the whole situation. So Oxford Promotions wants to paint a mural on a public toilet owned by council, the council. And there's a problem with that, getting information about how to do that.
So Shirley probably could give a better backstory than me, but she's got a conflict. So about 10 years ago, there was a mural on the toilets. The council came and painted over them without telling anyone. And then so from there, Keep Oxford Beautiful went, right, well, we'll put a new one on it. And for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been getting from the council, you've got to wait until there's a Arts and Public Places Trust set up to approve a mural. So we can't do anything until that happens. So now it's set up, and Shirley's again inquired about it. She can't find anything out about it. So basically all we're asking for is Green Space to go back and work with them and figure out what they have to do it. They're offering to organise funding for it and organise artists and stuff and to get it painted, to get a base coat painted, but they just need the council to come to the table and assist them in what they need to do it. So we're not asking for a lot. Right, so the Pearson Park and the Ashley Gorge Advisory Groups both aren't meeting under level 2, so I haven't done anything for them. So really all I've been doing for the last month is just my normal community trust stuff. We had our AGM last week. Again, obviously with not many people there because we're in level 2. But again, they're in a healthy position and they've secured ongoing funding to continue into the future, so they're in a very healthy position, and they've maintained their current staff, which are working incredibly well in the community. And other than that, the green spaces have actually re-sown and levelled out the farmers market area in Pearson Park, and it's looking good. So hopefully they'll be able to use it soon. It was quite bumpy and the grass was a bit patchy, so they re-sowed it, and I think it got mowed for the first time last week, so it's looking good.
Yeah, not much to report this month. I attended the Mandeville Sports Centre Delegates meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the All Boards meeting of last week, and had a very enjoyable Friday evening last week taking part in the WDC Social Club quiz. A lot of fun.
And we did really well.
And we did very well, especially with this young lady to my right.
I attended a museum meeting, Oxford Museum meeting, nothing really to report other than they said an incognito health and safety officer came in, and then they were told that they needed to secure a lot of stuff along the walls. One thing I did attend, I got asked to attend, was the Oxford AMP Association meeting that they had with 2 of our planners regarding what is in the new proposed plan. They are zoned residential, and they've done the AMP show for like 150 years or something. But now it's going to have permitted activities, which means they will be limited in some aspects. Just like it doesn't say they have helicopter landings with, when someone's injured and things like that. That's not in their permitted activities. They're really concerned about the lighting for the observatory, because there's nothing in there. The rugby club actually have the big lights going, sometimes twice a week during the winter. There's nothing in there to say, it says that there should be no lights at X amount of time in some other part of it. A lot of people, when they have their annual show, people come with caravans and everything like that, and they stay on the grounds for a couple of days with their horses and that. It's said that they can't do that if there's residential activity on the grounds at the same time. They're not allowed grazing. That excludes the use of land and buildings for keeping and grazing when there is residential activity, so that won't be able to be done. They do have RV people come and stay and use their facilities. So they're really concerned about how it's going, and I'm just wondering, can the community board support a submission to say that they are permitted to use the grounds as they've done in the past? I don't think they've ever had a complaint about what is going on in their grounds. You might be able to...
So my understanding is the zoning is changing from residential, so
No, it's not changing,
they're putting the overlay on at the open street road. So certainly my understanding was it would not restrict those things. But so at the meeting, who attended the meeting with the...
Matt Bacon and it must be Tim Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's signed
Yep. Yep. So that has to be done through submission. So that's the only way that can be put in. So if they've got concerns that they're going to have more restricted provisions under that overlay, then it's just a submission through to the district plan review, and then that will be considered.
Yeah, I realise that. But,
Yeah.
I would hate for it not to be approved.
No.
I mean,
But that'll be Hearings Commission's the only one who can hear that and make that decision. So, but the Oxford Community Board can certainly, on any points in relation to the district, also add its submission. But yeah, look, what might be useful is if I get Matt Bacon to do a summary of that meeting and where he believes that got to help inform their submission, just to clarify those points, because there's a couple of things in there I find a bit surprising.
Yeah, well, the secretary actually asked, she found it, like me, very hard to read the e-plan, and she asked for help, and this planner said, sorry for the delay, I'm trying to work out the best way in being able to show you how to use it. That's from a planner.
No, that's to try and show you remotely. So you look, absolutely, and we've got people submitting on paper, it's no problem, and we've got people submitting through e-plan and getting talked through it. So getting submission done is no issue. The core thing is, what do you want to say in your submission? So I think step number one is if I get Matt Bacon if he was at that meeting, to clarify the situation, the points of concern, and provide some guidance as to which elements to bring up in a submission. He won't be able to write the submission, but he can say, hey, these are the things from my understanding that you're concerned about, and this is what you'd need to submit on. So I can get him to summarise that and provide that information back to the groups that attended. You can circulate to the community board. If that should clarify any outstanding matters that you want to submit on.
Yeah, I am just concerned that there could be something left out and they go to do an event and it's not a permitted activity.
There is also the thing that's new to this plan, though, is temporary activities. So the great thing about that, which we've not had that provision before, is that if there is something, because what council wanted to do is make sure anything innovative that people want to do in the future that we may not have considered now, that there's actually temporary activity provisions. So, for example, I don't know, there might be from drone flying competitions or I don't know. So there is now temporary activity provisions so that there is an ability for events to come in under that as well. But certainly you're right, the intent should be that the core activities are allowed for, but there is a temporary activities provision as well.
Yeah. It just seems that they have to list everything, which, what if they miss something out?
Yes, that's right. So they've tried to be broad ranged, but the temporary activities is kind of our backup, which we've not had before, which we strike it now. So we get applications on the current plan that were not envisaged and weren't even considered, and so would do trigger resource consent because we have no temporary activity provisions. So there is a backup, but you're absolutely right. Step number one, make sure the overlay is so what they want to do is make sure the overlay is as encompassing of what they're currently doing as possible, is what you're saying. So I think what I can do is ask Matt Bacon to summarise that meeting, make really clear the things that they've raised that they're concerned they're not going to be able to do, make it really clear whether that is the case and what they should submit on. So we can certainly provide that confirmation.
Thank you. I don't know if they've done that already, but it's just that she's very concerned that
Yeah.
something...
So we can check that and then circulate to Shirley. It could go around the board. Happy to do that.
Noteworthy things for me is I attended the OPEC meeting. They've got a mix and mingle coming up for Oxford businesses in November, from memory. Is that right? Mix and mingle, 15th, which is great. Lions were at the meeting and they're fundraising for a new vehicle for the Oxford Rural Trust, Oxford Health Trust, for the rural nurse. I've got some connections with Mitsubishi, so I'm going to see if we can help them get a better deal on the vehicle they're looking for. And we had what we consider to be a New Zealand famous actress at the meeting.
Was she?
Yeah? Who's the one from the Arts Trust? Who's the lady from the Arts Trust? She was in Gloss?
She what? In Gloss?
Yeah.
I don't watch them.
No, I recognised her. I went home and I asked my wife and Googled the name, and yeah, she was a New Zealand actress who's been in a lot of New Zealand soaps and so forth. So there you go, you learn something every day. Since Wendy's not here for the Mandeville board, good news is they got a grant for the tractor, so the board signed off on buying a brand new tractor for the grounds person. It's been delivered hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And the club, as you know, is looking at redevelopment of the club rooms. Version 2 of the concept went out to all clubs. We got about 43 items of feedback, which have now been collated and sent back to the board for consideration for version 3 of that plan. So, and my last point is that the bane of every lifestyle block owner at this time of year coming up will be Guy Fawkes night. So I'll spend most of the night outside with torches trying to, and wire cutters, just for horses and cattle that will go through fences. So yeah, the sooner it's banned the better.
Right, on the 19th of October, I attended a meeting with the Sandona residents that Ray had organised with a couple of planners. It was very interesting and good to see a majority of the residents from there supporting the fact that they would like the growth in our area to be in their area. So if we did as a board think that was an area that made sense, it seems like the locals think it does. So it sort of reaffirms the logic in that. On the 27th, I went to the All Boards meeting as well, and then yesterday we had a WAG meeting via Teams. Not a nice platform, but anyway. And there was just a couple of things through that, just that obviously GPs are extremely busy. They are lacking staff because they can't get any staff in the country. Seems to be the problem. Lots of great food security projects. 9 new food forests are going to pop up around the communities with Brent Kean sort of pushing those along, which is a really great initiative. I think one might be in Oxford too, is it? I think maybe. The Next Steps coordinator is the development of the website's going to be going ahead, so connecting people into services that they might need to access. There's some art strategy funding coming up, which they're hoping to use for a broader range of things rather than just art itself, but helping with any mental health and well-being. There's quite a few people from Gloria Vale apparently settling in North Canterbury now, so there's been some meetings of how to make that transition as successful as possible. And there is the police wanting more support from the communities because 70% of their time at the moment is dealing with mental health responses. So they are wanting more community support to help with that. So they have got obviously more time to do other things as well. And I was just also thinking that maybe if I got some information from the community trust and how that's tracking along with things, I could feed that back into that WAG meeting. I was thinking when you were saying about that today, Thomas, so maybe if you could flick me minutes or any information that comes from that meeting, then I can feed it back into that and keep them updated.
Yeah, well, they do,
We'll just talk about a couple of these things on here. I've emailed, everything's been emailed to you guys anyway. But I suppose of note in the last month, we had the Zone 5 and 6 conference, which I attended. It was here in Christchurch. And what that is, a local government New Zealand, Zone 5 and 6 is basically the South Island. So Zone 5 is the top of the South Island, Zone 6 is the bottom. So everybody comes together in one place every 6 months. And it was just really reflective of the fact that there's an awful lot of upheaval going on right now, because we've got, obviously, in the shadow of COVID-19, we have Three Waters reform, we've got Future for Local Government reform, we've got resource management reform, there's the health board reform, then there's the discussions around things like housing and the NZTA's, NLTP funding or not funding. A lot of councils around the country, we're very lucky, I think, that we aren't so dependent on tourism, because a lot of other areas are really screaming out because, they've really lost their bread and butter. So we're very fortunate in that effect that we don't have our eggs in that basket. But yeah, it's always a really good chance to get together and network and just sort of see what's going on out there. And I have to say that our council is, I think, doing a heck of a lot better than our neighbors as far as how their economic bounce back is going, or in their welfare, I think, just in the shadow of COVID and everything else that's going on. So, but yeah, there's an awful lot of upheaval out there. The District Planning and Regulation Committee meeting, I suppose things of note there, that our resource consents are significantly up from 2020 and trending upwards. Your team would corroborate that, wouldn't they, Tracy? But 98% of them are still being processed on time. So that's pretty darn good. I think there are only 4 that didn't quite squeak in under the statutory time limit. So, and we're waiting to see if the DP notification or the resource management reform is going to affect our numbers. That's just how long will a piece of string be, but so far so good, touch wood. Our environmental services unit has also reported back to us there's been a growth in dog numbers. Everybody talks about dogs and not being on leashes and not being picked up after and whatever, but dare I say it, 94% of them have at least gotten themselves registered, and council's in contact with the other 6 that didn't, so that can't be too bad. The online services are becoming a more prominent feature of our offering. They're able to, for instance, do, say, dog licensing online, and I think they're hoping to be able to roll those things out in other departments as well, so it would be really good to see what kind of online processing abilities that we might be able to do in future, but we'll just see. Does that make sense with you? Yeah. And I look at Tracy because this is actually her department I'm talking about, so. And over lockdown, as we've also all heard and seen on our local social media and from our neighbors and that, there was a rise in litter and noise service requests over, most likely linked to the lockdown, because people were out and about noticing things a bit more, and obviously they were all at home, and so yeah, the ESU received 232 more service requests than they did last year. So that's a pretty reasonable extra chunk of time. And as Wendy's not here, I'll just talk about the Community and Recreation Committee meeting. Probably things of note there that Neighborhood Support asked Council to divert their $3,200 funding from the community barbecues to growing the membership, because they've been making a concerted effort to actually expand their membership, and they thought that it was actually better for them to be able to use that funding to get out into the communities and talk to people about neighborhood support and gets ready, rather than spend all their money on barbecues around the place. But council will still support that by carrying on the community barbecues in their stead. So it will be good to sort of see those things still happen, because I know, for instance, the one that we've held in Ohoka here for the last few years has been very well attended. And they've been really great events. So, I'd hate to see them stop happening. So it's good to see that we can all have our cake and eat it too in that respect. Our library team, They are all stars. I don't know if you guys go to the libraries that much. I know you do. But our library team are absolutely amazing, and they always make me happy whenever they do reports. But their latest was that they took 4th place in a global library song contest for down at your local library. 4th place in the world. I don't know if we can, make signs for that or claim to fame or what, but, hey, I'm going to run with that because, again, that puts a smile on my face. I hope it does yours too. They are also looking at growing their social media sort of footprint, and they're seeing growth in desire for different social media, I suppose, for reaching different audiences and whatnot. So that's kind of interesting. See where they get with that. With the pools, COVID-19, of course, is impacting their visitor levels as they do everywhere else. But I think that they are still coping remarkably well, given that they're stretched in some other capacities, and they're just kind of making the most of a tough time. But people are actually quite enjoying the chance to get in and book lane space, so they know that because they've got a booking, they know that whenever they go, they're going to have their swimming lane, and they're not going to have to share it with 14 other people or whatever. So at least that's going well. And with regard to the Green Space 21-22 work plan, you'll all be interested to know that the Rifle Club ongoing options are being investigated. Again, that's a really tough one because of the lead that they still use in their shot. So it's kind of really difficult. It's proving very difficult to find a new home for them because they've had to move from Cust. And they're hoping to maybe find someplace, because I think they started out in Oxford, didn't they? The Rifle Club.
No, two different clubs. Two different clubs.
Okay.
One was Cust West Eton, another one was Oxford.
Okay, and so they merged? No, okay.
Oxford went into recess, and then they wanted to start again, but they couldn't because the building has been strengthened and the rifle range has been used.
There's a giant concrete pillar in the middle of the range.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, so this one for the Cust Club, which I think is called, anyway, it's proving difficult for them to find a new home, but they haven't given up on them. But I mean, if anybody knows has any good ideas of where we can house them, that'd be great. But anyway, moving right along, the West Oxford toilets tender has closed, I presume, because it was supposed to close the end of October, which of course was a few days ago. So that will be a watch this space. Hopefully we'll get that underway shortly. And the Cooper's Creek toilet is a collaboration with DOC, and that's the one I believe that West Oxford is the one that actually got national funding for tourism infrastructure. Is that right? Yeah. But hey, 2 new toilets in West Oxford and Cooper's Creek on the way, so. And the Wolf's Road Suspension Bridge, Shirley, they've engaged a consultant, and they are looking to consult the public by February 2022. So early next year is the plan for that. So again, notwithstanding whatever Mother Earth or diseases or whatever else we want to throw our way, that is our plan anyhow. So fingers crossed we get that underway. Yeah, I know. Honestly, are we waiting for locusts? Because I am. A plague of locusts, because we've had, earthquakes and floods and pestilence, and, it's like crying out loud. Okay, I shouldn't speak that into existence. On the 21st of October, I had a marvelous day going out to View Hill School, who did a planting day in conjunction with Working Waters Trust out on the neighboring farm, Kofi Farm, to enhance the habitat of the Kawato, the mudfish. I had never seen a mudfish. I have seen a mudfish now. It's quite exciting. But the kids and the volunteers, they're awesome, and they got the job done, and it was really, really lovely to finally go out and attend a planting day in my own ward. Hallelujah, because I'll go to a planting day anywhere. So it's really nice to actually see some stuff going on in our own backyard. So that was really cool. And over the last weekend, we just had the training days for the Flamingo e-scooter launch, which I had to turn up on one of those because I have to say, for all my enthusiasm about e-scooters, I had never ridden one before. So I can say that I've done that now, and it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought. So if you get the chance, have a go. And council meeting, I can't say was probably had a whole lot of exciting things from the board's point of view in there. The representation review decision, we, as you would be aware, went ahead with the status quo except for the Rangiora Ashley Community Board area, where they're changing from what was kind of 5 urban and 3 rural subdivision to 6 members urban and 2 rural, just to reflect the population balance. And yeah, that's about it, really. Any questions?
Tia has a question.
What does a mudfish look like? Is it a flatfish?
No, they actually, there might be a photo I can show you. They're little. Honestly, they remind me a bit of tadpoles just before they sprout legs.
Sort of like a weird looking axolotl.
Yeah.
Can I just comment on that? The first Canterbury mudfish was actually found on our property that we've got now, and there's actually a mudfish plaque at the end of Bush Road and Mill Road. Mr. Burrows actually found it in 1930 something, and there was I coordinated a mudfish day with the Department of Conservation about 8 years ago, and they had mudfish. We had mud wrestling and mud cake and things like that. So yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I've got a T-shirt if you want it. Do you want a T-shirt with mudfish on it? I'll give you one.
There's a lovely young woman that. There you go, Tia. There's a picture of a mudfish. No, they're very endangered. What's really clever about them is that, so they can actually, whenever the streams that they live in dry up over summer, they can burrow down into the mud when there's no water and basically hibernate in mud. And that's why they're called a mudfish. So they're very clever. I wouldn't probably eat one. No. But a young lady that that volunteered that day, she is a newly graduating freshwater ecologist, really jazzed on them, and she reckons she's going to get a tattoo of a mudfish. So there you go. I see your T-shirt and I raise you a tattoo. So, yeah. Did you have a question? Sorry.
Just wondering if you've heard if the cycle network plan's going out for submission anytime soon, or is it being put off again?
That was part of. We actually tabled 2 reports that came to council yesterday, and they were. It's a shame that Joanne's not here, but we're just really trying to see what we can squeeze out of NZTA. They've made a few adjustments to what they've offered us, but it's still unclear. But by and large, my understanding is, as it stands, that we didn't get any funding for that, which I find utterly shocking, because they've said focus on things, lower emissions activities and PT and active transport mode shift, blah, blah. So we did, and they gave us no money for it. So the idea, I think, was that they would go and consult for it anyway. In the meantime, we'll try to see if we can wangle more funding, but we will just go to the community with the half funding that we've got and see where it goes from there, and just hope that the NZTA sees that we have a shovel-ready project ready to roll, and will come to the party. It's really disappointing, but I haven't given up hope that they'll completely abandon us yet. At least not on that. That just doesn't make any sense to me. They're telling us to focus on low carbon transport, and they give us nothing for it. So.
just wondering, because the Swananoa School has started doing quite a lot of work to try and, so when this came out for consultation, they were ready to hit the ground with promoting it in the community. I'm wondering if council might be able to use what they've done and what they're planning to do to go to NZTA as a little
That was a question
back
I
the kids promotion.
wanted to ask them about the low-cost, low-risk funding. And I'm just wrong agenda. I'll see if I can pop it up. So, sorry, I'm just trying to find some notes in here.
While you're finding it, I am concerned that the rural area will be left behind again, even with what's mooted. I reckon it'll go to the eastern part of it, whereas, you know, looking down the Swananoa area to Mandeville, it's not very far. The side roads, it would be great if the children could get on their bikes and bike to school. I think we have to promote it.
That's something that I am absolutely going to fight for and do fight for every chance I get, because it's fine and well for the urban children to, you know, be encouraged to take a bike or whatever, but the fact of the matter is, you know, they can walk safely to school probably, whereas our kids, particularly, you know, rural kids, in that we stretch down there from down Tram Road to Swananoa School, those kids fall outside of, you know, they're just a little bit too close to school to get a school bus, but too far to safely cycle or walk. It's not a safe road to put a child on a bike on. And the kids that do sort of live in that area, they travel a rather convoluted way so that they can go kind of off-road through the wee walkway between Stone Air Place and is it Weathersfield? Anyway, some of the roads up there, they have like a little walkway where they connect. And so that they go, you know, probably a good K or whatever out of their way so they can be safer to bike to school. But
Just making note that they have already started work on it, so they could perhaps support anything that goes to NZTA.
great. Yeah, that's something that, I was wanting to push on that, is to see if we could get something, at least that particular project through for the through the minor safety program. But then before I could ask my question, they tabled the report. So I will ask the question next time. But thank you for letting me know about the support from the school.
Right, thank you. Let's move on.
Thomas has a question.
Sorry?
Thomas has a question.
Thomas has a question. Let's move back.
It's actually a question for Tia, actually. But can we chase up some information about the rifle club situation? Well, I have asked about it before, various people, and this seems to be, I don't know, like a secret squirrel sort of operation going on there. But because I've asked through Pearson Park as well. Well, the rifle club, it's the, I don't know what they're calling it now, but it's the Cust and the Oxford Rifle Club, two different clubs. About both, yeah, because there's money being set aside, but I sort of don't really know what they're doing, so it would be nice to have a bit of an idea. And also our long-term plan submission response, we haven't heard anything.
Can we move on now? Yes. Good. Thank you. Consultation projects. Proposed district plan, e-scooters, and the draft district parking strategy. Any comments?
Noting.
One, someone from Oxford wants to know when the e-scooters are coming to our streets.
Right. Board funding update. Board discretionary grant fund is at $6,790, less what we granted tonight. And the general landscaping fund at $12,710. There's no media items, no questions, understanding orders, no urgent general business. Workshop. We got anything to workshop?
No.
Nothing to workshop.
I just have one question. I emailed everybody a copy of the first draft of the submission. Please, I appreciate any more input that we can include, and then I can do the final draft and forward that to everybody for their final approval before we have to submit before the 26th of November. But that's it.
Just one.
Tia, I did ask some questions. Will they be answered?
I have forwarded them to Trevor with a very high priority sticker on it, and as soon as I get the answers back, I will get that to you so that we can include some of that stuff in our submission as well.